Senate will come to order. Those not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by the Senator from Tucker. Please remain standing after the prayer as the Senator from Monongalia leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Senator from Tucker.
Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the day that you've given us. Lord, we just thank you for the many, many blessings you've bestowed upon us as individuals and as a state and as a country, Lord. Lord, we ask that you be with those less fortunate than us and be with our military men and women wherever they're stationed, Lord, and watch over and protect them, Lord. Bring them home safely to their family. Lord, we ask you that you be with us as legislators, that you open our minds and open our hearts, Lord, that we do your will, Lord, not the way of the world, but your will. We just ask that you be with our families as they're home by themselves, Lord, and watch over and protect them, Lord, and just give us the wisdom to do your work, Lord. But most of all, we thank you for sending your Son to die for us on the cross so that we have everlasting life, Lord. We just ask that you just be with us and the citizens of West Virginia, and just lead, guide, and direct us and protect us and forgive us where we failed you, Lord. For these favors and blessings, we ask in Jesus Christ's most precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask the members and our guests to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 10th, 2023. The Senate met at 9 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
Senior Senator from the 5th requests unanimous consent to further reading of the journals dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journals dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome the honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest is the Senator from Morgan, Katie Hatfield. As guest is the Senior Senator from the 17th, Emily Claire Swingle. As guest is the Senator from Ohio, Elia Maynard. As guest is the Senior Senator from the 8th, Jason Maynard Eads. As guest is the Senator from Harrison, Allison Day and Lily Day. As guest is the Senator from Monongalia, Quinn McKenzie and Amanda Herndon. A special guest is the Senator from Logan, Remy Warden. Would the Senate please make them all feel welcome? Are there further introductions? Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it is your honor and mine to introduce our doctor of the day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us a good friend of mine, Dr. Wes Lafferty. If you wouldn't mind standing, let's give you a warm welcome. And Mr. President, I also have one other announcement or introduction. Today with us seated in the President's Gallery, we have the chaperone for Emily Claire Swingle, her mother, Laura Marie Goins. So if you wouldn't mind standing, let's give you a warm welcome.
Further introductions? Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, on behalf of the senior senator from the 10th District in the South Gallery, we have some members of the Monroe chapter of West Virginians for Life. And as I call their name, may they stand: Tom and Martha Hunter, Margie Pence, and Monica Giacolau. May the Senate make them welcome. Thank you.
Senator from Logan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today with us, seated in the President's Gallery, the chaperone for our special honorary page, seated beside me, Remy's parents, Art and Julie Tom. Please stand, and the Senate, please make them welcome.
Senator from Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today is West Virginia's, it's Pro-Life Day at the Legislature, and we have folks from all over the state here visiting us to hear and to support that legislation. Would they all stand up, no matter where they're sitting, so that the Senate can make them all feel welcome?
Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have with us, seated in your gallery, the chaperone for our honorary page, Aaliyah, Mother Rebecca Salandino. Please stand and have the Senate make her feel welcome. And I also see in the gallery over here that Judy Meyer is here from Ohio County. Please stand and let's make her feel welcome.
Take it here and let me get through this. Senior Senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your behalf and the Senator from Kanawha's behalf, we have in the President's Gallery today, chaperone of our honorary page, James Eads. His grandmother, if Sherry Sanders would stand, and the Senate please make her welcome.
Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. The President's Gallery today with us, the chaperone of a few of our honorary pages. Lily and Allison's mother is joining us. Her name is Jamie Day. If she can please stand, and the Senate please make her feel welcome.
Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have some students and family members from Monongalia County that are here for Pro-Life Day. If they will please stand and the Senate make them welcome. In addition, Mr. President, we have a former member with us today. If the Senate would make welcome our friend from Wheeling, former Senator Andy McKenzie. Senator McKenzie today is here with his wife, Carrie, as well as Rick and Pam Herndon. They are parents of children paging, and they are friends of the Senator from Marshall and the Senator from Ohio as well. And just wanted to point out that many of us are familiar with the Judith Herndon internship program that has gone on here for decades. And Dr. Herndon in the President's Gallery is the brother of Dr. Judith Herndon, and we want to make the four of them especially welcome, and we want to thank his family for the financial commitment that has allowed this internship program to continue for many years. Please make them welcome.
Are there further introductions? Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the President's Gallery is the parent of one of our honorary pages. Mr. President, you introduced her, Katie Hatfield. She is, like you, she's a student at Mighty Hedgesville High School. Her father is chaperoning her today, Paul Hatfield. I'd ask him to stand and for the Senate to make him welcome.
Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2218, Distracted Driving Act.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure and then the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2832, clarifying appropriate and inappropriate duties for school counselors while also providing the definition of a school counselor.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Education.
House Bill 2882, making a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Economic Development.
Message will be received, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and the bill be read the first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 2882, making a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Economic Development. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2970, creating the equitable right to expungement.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3145, recognizing the Commission on Uniform State Laws as a presumptive provider of continuing legal education.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Communications from the Executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
There are none.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 607 through Senate Bill 613 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on our chamber automation system.
Senior Senator from the 17th requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill 607 through Senate Bill 613 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 30 by Senator Grady, recognizing February 14th, 2023 as National Donor Day at the Legislature.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day.
Senate Resolution 31 by Senator Tarr, designating February 14th, 2023 as Child Care Day at the Legislature.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 11, naming the U.S. Army Sergeant Brian Christopher Karim Memorial Bridge.
Resolution will be referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure.
Senate Resolution 29, strongly encouraging Monongahela Power Company to purchase Pleasance Power Station.
Senator from Pleasance.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 29, strongly encouraging Monongahela Power Company to purchase Pleasance Power Station.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Pleasance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pleasance Power Station is the economic lifeblood of my home county of Pleasance. The station stands today as the single largest taxpayer in the state's fifth smallest county. The plant has and hopefully will continue to serve as a foundational pillar of the local business community, providing over $125 million in economic impact to the Mid-Ohio Valley and over $400 million to the state of West Virginia. Pleasance Power directly provides family-sustaining employment for 154 individuals and is a catalyst for hundreds of additional jobs throughout the region and state. Last year, the power station consumed over 3 million tons of West Virginia coal from mines located in Marshall, Ohio, and Marion counties, providing for the employment of hundreds of West Virginia coal miners. The plant's of 1,300 megawatts of coal-fired capacity, provides fuel-secure base load power capable of powering over 880,000 homes. Pleasance County, like many locations throughout our great state, has seen its share of economic strife caused by plant closures. The county has seen 3 major industrial facilities shuttered over the years and cannot afford to lose another. The plant's towers have stood prominently now for 44 years, dominating the skyline of the Ohio Valley. They stand today as a symbol of economic strength and grid stability for the same region. The loss of Pleasance Power would leave a mark on its host community. The job losses created by such a closure stands to rip the social fabric that binds our community together. I urge you today to join me and vote for the passage of this resolution, to support the call for Mon Power to purchase Pleasance Power Station and preserve the jobs and tax base that provides for so many throughout the state of West Virginia. I urge your support.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I strongly encourage support of the resolution. I thank the senator for being the lead sponsor on it. I come from a community that had a little power station that got closed, and it was devastating to that little town. It was absolutely devastating. They're really running on a wing and a prayer now since that plant has closed. A lot of the guys that I represented, Mr. President, when I worked for the mine workers, worked at the mines that supplied this power station with coal. I think the senator said 3 million tons of West Virginia coal a year go to that power station. So it's more than just a a few jobs to operate the facility. It's the ancillary jobs that count too, and that could come up into the hundreds, maybe 1,000 with the loss of that plant. So I hope First Energy / Mon Power decides to purchase this, and I thank her once again for introducing the resolution.
Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand in support of the resolution. You know, there's a lot of talk about the economic stability in the area, which is true. It creates and keeps a lot of good paying jobs in that area. And like the gentleman from Marion, we lost a power plant in Preston County in around 2011, somewhere in there. And it was devastating to the economy, not only the businesses, but the school boards. But I think what most people don't realize is what we lose with grid stability every time we shut one of these power plants down. As you know, we had a presentation in Energy here a few weeks ago where we brought PJM in and the power companies, and during that 4 days of cold spell during Christmas, the PJM grid almost crashed because of having trouble getting power to the grid because of the extreme cold weather, the gas lines freezing up, and residential customers taking gas off the main lines. But and they also said if it wouldn't have been for the coal power plants that was online and ramped up, that it would have crashed. And this is what we're heading to. Every time we shut down one of these coal power plants, we put our grid at risk. And it seems like nobody cares about it or even is worried about it, not only in the country or this state. But I'm telling you, I'm not a prophet or anything like that, not claiming to be a prophet. But one of these days, we're going to live to regret what we've did with these power plants. And I mean, I know it's, you know, they're always talking about the science. Well, the science is that America burns their coal and gas power plants both cleaner than any country in the world. We mine our coal here. We can't use it here, so we ship it to China or India or Russia or any foreign country. And most of these countries burn it without any regulations whatsoever. So it's just, it's part of this woke movement. You know, they talk science all the time, but they're not really practicing the science. But I appreciate the lady introducing this. I know it's important to her district, and to be honest with you, it's important to all of our districts because this power is produced and is put in onto the grid. And you know, with that being said, I urge support of SR 29. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Roll call has been demanded by the senator from Monongalia. Is the demand sustained? The demand is sustained. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine to ascertain the results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected and voting. I declare the resolution adopted. Are there further resolutions?
No, sir.
Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 47, creating charter school stimulus fund. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would create the Charter School Stimulus Fund. The purpose of the fund is to offer financial support to entities who wish to start a charter school. Funding would come from legislative appropriation, grants, gifts, donations, and interest. The bill also provides for rulemaking to the Professional Charter School Board to develop an application, notification procedures, and attestation regarding the inability of the applicant to start the school without financial assistance from the fund. The bill also provides an initial grant of $300,000 in the first 2 years of operation and an additional grant of $100,000 after receiving that initial part of the grant. There are provisions for repayment if the school is not operational within 30 months. The bill does not provide for a direct revenue source yet. It would require an appropriation to do that. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 1 nay, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 187, making it a felony offense for school employee or volunteer to engage in sexual contact with students. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill makes it a felony offense for any public or private school employee or volunteer to engage in sexual intercourse, sexual intrusion, or sexual contact with any student regardless of the student's age, and further provides that consent for the act or occurrence off school property or at a time other than during a school function is not a defense. The bill also provides that the offense is separate from any other applicable offense, and the penalties are in addition to any other penalties for any other applicable offense. The penalty for anyone convicted of this offense is not less than 1 nor more than 5 years in prison and or a fine of up to $5,000, and includes the permanent forfeiture of any teaching or other certificate. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 237 relating to public employees retirement system and state teachers retirement system. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 237 will provide enhanced benefits to some of our low-income state retirees. This is a very diligent product from the Joint Pension Committee over the past year. And I explained a little bit of this on Friday when we had an amendment, but the bill affects both public employees, or those in our public employee retirement system, as well as retirees in our teachers' retirement system. It is a two-part process of providing some enhanced payments to some of our low-income retirees. The first part is for those retirees that are age 70 and older as of July 1, 23, and have 20 years of service to the state and currently receive less than $1,000. According to this bill, they'll receive a one-time payment or a 13th check of $1,500. The second component of this is, again, for retirees in both our public system as well as our teacher system that are over 70 as of July 1, 23, have over 25 years of service, and currently receive less than $1,000. What this bill will do is raise their minimum monthly retirement to $1,000. What we're doing here has been done a number of times in the last 20 years, not only the 13th check, but also the raising of a minimum. It's quite timely with our surpluses right now. Obviously, we wish we could do more. It is a high priority for us, especially in these inflationary times. This will affect almost 8,000 of our retirees in the state. Of course, we wish we could do more. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Mr. President, I believe there is a supplemental request that will be following here on third reading to cover this expense out of last year's surplus. But I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2023, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
The Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective July the 1st, 2023, and requests unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July 1, 2023. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 290 relating to dental health care service plans. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 290. The purpose of this bill is to establish a minimal medical loss ratio for dental insurance plans and to require transparency through the medical loss ratio reporting requirements. The medical loss ratio refers to the percentage of dollars spent directly on patient care as compared to dental insurance carriers' total premium revenue on the enrollee's plan. The bill sets the minimum medical loss ratio for individual and small group plans at 70%, and sets the minimum medical loss ratio for large group plans at 75%. When a carrier does not reach its minimum medical loss ratio threshold, it must provide a rebate in the form of a reduction to the patient's plan's premium. Furthermore, Mr. President, the bill provides legislative and emergency rulemaking to the insurance commissioner. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 30 yeas, 3 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 472, creating criminal offense of indecent exposure in front of minors.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed Senate Bill 487, extending additional modification, reducing federal adjusted gross income. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Brooke.
President, Senate Bill 487 would continue a provision of the code that provides for an adjustment to federal adjusted gross income for retirees whose pension plan terminates and is governed by a guarantor who offers a maximum benefit that is less than what the retiree would have received under the pension plan. Now, that's the description, the technical description. What this bill actually does is it allows for a tax credit for certain retirees of Weirton Steel whose pensions have been taken over by what is called the PBGC, the Pension Board Guarantee Corporation. The tax credit serves to be in the amount between what the retiree receives and what they should have actually received in their pension from Weirton Steel. I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 505, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Administration, Office of Secretary. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This supplemental appropriation first appropriates $26 million of the unappropriated surplus balance of the General Revenue Fund to a newly created appropriation entitled Consolidated Public Retirement Surplus within the Department of Administration, Office of the Secretary. Second, this bill directs the Secretary of Administration to transfer this new appropriation to the appropriate Public Employees Retirement Fund to effectuate the provisions of Senate Bill 237, which just passed this body earlier. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 505 simply corrected a technical error introduced in the bill. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present, of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective for passage. On question unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and requests unanimous consent on the roll call used on the passage of the bill to be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 33 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 508, clarifying reporting and disclosure requirements for grassroots lobbying expenditures. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 508 would amend the single section of the state code. It's in the State Ethics Act. It's Chapter 6B, Article 3, Section 5, one section. That section and the Ethics Act requires individuals and entities who are not otherwise required to register as lobbyists, as provided elsewhere in that chapter, to register as a sponsor of a grassroots organization, a lobbying campaign, when they expend more than $100 in 1 month or $500 over 3 months in activities addressed to the public that are intended, designed, or calculated to influence legislation and to disclose donors of more than $25. Now that statute was enacted as part of the original enactment of our Governmental Ethics Act in 1989, and the amounts have stayed the same ever since. This bill would raise the thresholds, and it would require that registration and disclosure requirements are triggered if enacted, when individuals and entities will not be required to lobby or register as sponsors of a grassroots organization unless they expend more than $1,000 in a single month or more than $5,000 over a 3-month period. And donors would not need to be disclosed unless they donate $1,000 or more to the individual or entity, specifically for the purpose of furthering the grassroots lobbying campaign. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions. I would urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Cabell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this particular bill. We had a healthy debate within the Judiciary Committee on it. If you're in favor of transparency in terms of money in politics, then you should oppose this. It provides additional secrecy, raises the limits of money that can be used in campaigns in various ways without any kind of disclosure of who, in fact, is funding these efforts. So I urge rejection of the bill. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is Senator from Morgan wishes to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I want to clarify a couple things. First of all, this does not relate to political campaigns for election of candidates. This bill addresses only grassroots lobbying campaigns. So that's a group in your community that organizes in some fashion and says, let's contact, they pass out flyers, say contact your senator, contact your delegate, tell them to vote for this bill or against this bill. This law regulates when those entities have to be treated as in a way that requires disclosure. It's not campaign finance. These are not disclosures that go to the Secretary of State. It's the State Ethics Commission. And my friend from Cabell, I agree with him that there is a level at which there should be public notice and transparency of what's going on. But this bill recognizes that for small community-based, grassroots lobbying activities. There's some point below which it's burdensome, unreasonably so, to require people to, be treated as if they're a big lobbying organization. This protects small community organizations that are saying, we want you to pass this bill or we want you not to pass this bill, from being caught up in a big regulatory regime when they engage in that important First Amendment protected activity. I urge passage.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 29 yeas, 4 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 516 relating to requirements for disclosure of donor contributions. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 516 would amend 3 different sections in our code, and they are in Chapter 3. That's the Elections Code. Article 8 relates to financing of regulation and control of elections, and the amendments would be to Sections 1A, 2, and 2B. So this committee substitute adds a new definition to those sections, and it's a definition of a membership organization political action committee. That's not in our code right now. It is a term we believe that does exist in the rules that have been adopted by the Secretary of State, but it would go into the code related to elections. The new definition clarifies the difference between a membership organization on the one hand and a membership organization political action committee on the other hand. And that's a distinction which our statutes at least do not now recognize. The latter of which is organized for the primary purpose of influencing an election taking place in West Virginia. The committee substitute clarifies that not every membership organization qualifies as a political action committee or PAC. The committee substitute raises the minimum donation amount that triggering the independent expenditure disclosure requirement from $250 to $1,000. Finally, the committee substitute adds language clarifying that disclosure is limited to those donations made for the purpose of furthering election communications. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Cabell.
Will the Senator from Oregon yield?
Will the Senator yield? The Senator yields.
Will. Let's see if we can agree on some things. First of all, would you agree that there is less transparency, if this passes, than what we have currently for money involved in political races?
I will agree, but it's only in minor degree, and it's limited to membership organizations that are not political action committees.
Okay, and how much have we? Can you tell me what percentage have we raised? What is the current level of anonymous money that can be directed and used in these manners? Is it raised? Tell me how much it's raised, if you don't mind.
Let me tell you now. You have to look at both entities. They're membership organizations on the one hand that aren't political action, are not political action committees, and the newly defined term in here of membership organization political action committees. So with respect to a membership organization PAC, this changes nothing. Correct? I'm correcting that. Yeah. So every dollar that anybody donates, even an amount as little as $1, to a membership organization PAC, under current law has to be disclosed, and that remains the case after passage of this bill. That part's not changed. The bill does change the part that relates to when disclosure is required when the donation is just to a membership organization and not necessarily for political purposes. So let me give you an example. The National Rifle Association is a membership organization. The AFL-CIO is a membership organization. People pay money to these organizations for memberships and other purposes. Sometimes these organizations decide to play in the political game with work for or against particular candidates. So this bill does change the threshold at which disclosure is required in that circumstance. And the raise is from $250 to $1,000. So
what about that $5,000? Does that come into play?
The $5,000 is over a 3-month period. And let's see, there's some that the $5,000 is currently in the bill, but it's added in another place in the bill, and I'm looking for it right now. Hang on.
That's okay. I understand. So some of it, in other words, this could be used in a state senate campaign. Up to $5,000 can be given anonymously, not disclosing who the donor is, and as long as it was a part of that activity of that membership organization, a particular state senator in his or her race will have, over the course of a primary, as much as $5,000. By primary, I mean a primary season of 90 days. Up to $5,000 per individual would be subject to use against that particular state senator or Senate candidate without disclosure of the identity of the person doing that. Am I stating that correctly? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you are correct. I would put one caveat or qualification on it because it's not, it can't be money that's going directly into a candidate's campaign. In other words, a membership organization cannot donate money to the campaign for Senator candidate X or candidate Y and avoid disclosure. That is still required to be disclosed. What we're talking about here are membership organizations that decide to engage in their own independent political activity. Let me double check with Council.
No, you're right. I agree with that. You're right. But here's my point. We as candidates have to disclose every penny that we raise and we spend in a campaign, right? I understand that
That's
was
correct.
your last point. But the folks that are anonymous out here, $5,000 during the 3-month primary and then another $5,000 in the 3-month general, can give that money and spend it against one of us without us ever knowing who the person is through this vehicle, through the change this bill would make. Would you agree with me on that?
I think the senator is correct.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to speak to the bill, please.
Please.
The other day in our judiciary meeting, I made an amendment. I was unsuccessful. I think I maybe possibly had 4 votes in the committee, but I believe in the committee process. And the committee turned it down, and that's why I didn't make the amendment on the floor. But my concern with this bill, and the senator from Cabell, in his questioning of the distinguished judiciary chair, brought that out, and that's the fact that in my 21 years in the legislature, I have seen mail against me, and this is not about me, but against my colleagues whether it was from pollution that showed dead trout in the Cheat River, and the acknowledgement on the advertisement was this senator or delegate is in favor of pollution, including the rivers. I've seen card mailers against people that were pro-life and singled them out for their vote, labeling them and putting them in a hospital gown, holding a scalpel, and saying that they were for abortion. And I knew that was wrong, that they weren't. But here's my point. These people that run these campaigns, and I'll refer to it as dark money. They run these and they're in secrecy because they do not have to show who's contributing to them. And I'm not going to single out unions or private organizations or so forth, but I don't feel that's right, because we, and every one of us in this chamber, we're required to file every dollar that we receive in our campaign, and we got to list them. And as the old saying goes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I simply think these people that are doing these campaigns, and it's usually a target against, although I've seen some that were in favor of a candidate. But I'd like to see that stopped, and I don't care, excuse me, I don't mean to say I don't care, but Citizen United, Supreme Court ruled years ago that that's a matter of privacy. So why is our campaign forms not a matter of privacy? But I don't want them to be, because I think we're in an age of transparency. We need to show who's donating to us. And I think those organizations, whether it be union or non-union, should be explaining to the people who is on their list. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Oregon, wish to close debate. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, I do want to make the point, I don't know if I made it before, the $5,000 aggregate limit is not new. That is current law. It's in the bill, but it's not changed from what has been the law of this state. The only thing that, in that regard, that has changed is the increase of the threshold from $250 in a month to $1,000 a month in a month, and it would be that's really the change in the disclosure requirements under this, and the $5,000 relates to 3 months at a time. So, but that is unchanged. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on before the Senate. Shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 27 yeas, 6 nays, 1 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 527, allowing family members of military personnel access to discharge records.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill allow for 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 31, relating to permissible expenditures by the Water Development Authority from Infrastructure Fund. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 99, relating to meetings among county boards of education. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 274, Third Grade Success Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill? Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 409, authorizing Department of Commerce to promulgate legislative rules. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 441, removing additional 1.5% interest rate for tax underpayments.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Bill 452, relating to Emergency Medical Services Retirement System.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 453, ensuring retirement contributions and delinquency charges of charter school employees be paid upon school closure or by successor. Second
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Bill 458, setting rate of interest on delinquent retirement contribution submissions.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Bill 474, requiring Municipal Pensions Oversight Board to propose legislative rules.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that Senate Bill 474 will over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 478, relating to Jumpstart Savings Program. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 481, extending sunset provision of Upper Kanawha Valley Resiliency and Revitalization Program. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Engrossed House Bill 2310, provide the Division of Motor Vehicles authority to develop an antique fleet program so that multiple antique motor vehicles may utilize a single registration plate. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3061, relating to updating the authority of the Foster Care Ombudsman. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill? No, excuse me. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third reading with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading with the right to amend. Bills on first reading. Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be considered read a first time and advanced to second reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Senator from Junior Senator from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today would have been the 100th birthday of West Virginia's own American hero, Chuck Yeager. Charles Edward Yeager was born in 1923 in one of the counties in my Senate district, Lincoln County, in a small town called Myra, a town that today has fewer than 100 people. He grew up in the nearby village of Hamlin. Immediately upon graduation from high school, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps to serve in World War II. Chuck Yeager became an ace fighter pilot in World War II, and his Lincoln County and West Virginia heritage always served as a foundation for his heroic, inspiring success. He would eventually become an Air Force test pilot, and in 1947 was the first man to break the sound barrier. His work laid the groundwork for the first men in space. Mr. President, my fellow senators, happy birthday to an American hero and native son of Lincoln County and West Virginia, Chuck Yeager, on what would have been his 100th birthday.
Further remarks by members. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to talk about someone who is an inspiration in my life. I never met this person, but I did graduate from her same alma mater. When I was a young girl, there was a room in Mount Deschanel that was named the Herndon Room. And while I never had the opportunity to meet Senator Herndon, this room contained many of her great achievements. And as a little girl, I remember going into that room and seeing this inspirational person who was really a trailblazer. I looked in the hallway. She was the only female senator in the 1970s, and she held her own. She fought, and she did a great job. And I was fortunate that I got to graduate with her niece in about 20 years ago. I'm dating myself. But truly, Senator Herndon was a trailblazer, and I'm proud to use her as an inspiration, and I'm glad that her memory still is in the fellowship. And I hope that people who receive that fellowship understand what a truly remarkable person she was. Thank you.
Further remarks, Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I simply ask unanimous consent that the remarks by the junior senator from the 7th regarding General Yeager and the remarks by the senator from Ohio regarding Judith Herndon be printed in the appendix to the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m., and I have one additional announcement.
Doctor, that we have here, I'm limiting it to not the cumbersome part of that, but there would still be a general reporting that would be required, but it wouldn't have to go into as much detail. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I urge adoption, and I would reserve the right to close.
Questions on the amendment is read by the clerk and explained by the sponsor, the gentleman from 64th. Is there debate on the amendment? Lady from the 73rd, Douglas Summers, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that there has been an error on the DHHR when they created their form based on the law we passed this summer. When you read the form, it says, induced termination of pregnancies mean the purposeful interruption of an intrauterine pregnancy. Ectopic pregnancies are outside of the uterus, and therefore the data should not be on the form. So the amendment is unnecessary and in fact would require people to fill out a little part of the form that's not even needed. So I would urge rejection.
Gentleman from the 38th, Douglas Ellington, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also urge rejection of the amendment. I definitely respect the gentleman. However, the purpose of the bill was to get rid of that reporting part for ectopics. As the health chair just mentioned, it's really intended, the form was intended for termination of an intrauterine pregnancy. I have what the DHHR gave as a form and highlighted in orange the parts that need to be filled out. The rest of the form still has to be filled out under the gentleman's amendment. The purpose of not having to report that was it's outside the uterus, it's not a termination of an intrauterine pregnancy. It just creates extra work for those of us that have to do those ectopic pregnancies in surgery. I know the concern was that you didn't want someone that was just going to terminate pregnancies and say they were ectopics. By the way this current code is, it has in Senate Bill 302, it says that a miscarriage is not considered an abortion. Any individual, if they were going to perform a termination of pregnancy, could just say it was a miscarriage, and they can get around the whole thing too without having to do an ectopic. Typically, ectopics are done surgically, some are pharmacologic, but you have to put your diagnosis, and that gets followed by the Board of Pharmacy, so that is reported. Cases that are done in the hospital on ectopic surgical, that's covered under peer review in the hospitals. If there's any nefarious things going on with that, that would be picked up at that time. So I don't see the need to report all of this. Ectopics occur in about 1 to 2% of pregnancies. We're not going to see much of a difference on that. I don't think this would help to make us do the extra paperwork. So I would urge rejection on that basis.
Question is still on the amendment read by the clerk. Is there further debate on the amendment read by the clerk? If not, shall recognize the sponsor, gentleman from 64th, Dr. Burkhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will agree, appreciate our colleague pointing out, I believe we're going to create a loophole here in reporting. I think that's the #1 issue that I want to close. I think we made a very important and a very concise measure last fall when we said we're pro-life and we want to stop all abortions and we don't want to create any loopholes, and this is a loophole. But I also want to speak to the reporting that I believe this is valuable and important information when we look at what is being reported to us on this form. And there are things like a medical emergency existed, and there's a box for a fetus non-medically viable. And I think all of that getting reported back to us and being able to be reviewed. And I believe an ectopic pregnancy falls right into that category, and I believe is valuable information along with everything on this form. And so instead of, as you saw, a lot of the detail has been removed in my amendment, and it's just more basic information, and I believe it's very important information, and I would ask you to support the amendment and not allow this loophole to be open. And I would ask for the ayes and nays, Mr. Speaker.
Question on the question now before the House is the adoption of the amendment. Roll call vote on the amendment is demanded. Is demand sustained? Amendment is sustained. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Those in favor of adoption will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there are 33 ayes, 61 nays, 6 members absent, less than a majority in the affirmative. The chair declares the amendment lost. Are there further amendments to the bill? Are there further amendments to the bill? If not, the clerk will please advance the bill to third reading. Next bill on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3210 relating to the performance of installation of propane gas systems.
Are there amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3261 relating to social workers' qualifications.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
House Bill 3272 relating to the operation of private trust companies in West Virginia.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3302 to recognize unborn child as distinct victim in a DUI causing death.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3311 relating to wine alcohol by volume as compared to beer.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3318 relating to location of services provided by the Workforce Development Board as related to the one-stop delivery system.
Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that we postpone action one day.
Are there objections? Okay, no objections are heard. We'll postpone action one day on committee substitute for House Bill 3318. Are there other bills on second reading? If not, bills on first reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 188, Grid Stabilization and Security Act of 2023.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 239, requiring Commissioner of Bureau for Behavioral Health to engage certain providers and leaders to study homeless demographic.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 243, requiring substance use disorder inpatient providers to provide transportation to patients.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2186, relating to surgical smoke evacuation.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2821, relating to taxation of gambling and lottery winnings.
Bill will be advanced.
House Bill 2839, making a technical correction regarding an incorrect fund name and clarifying applicability to mine lands governed by SMCRA and the Abandoned Mine Lands Act.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2896, relating to making West Virginia an agreement state with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2993, relating to rural emergency hospital licensure.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3200, authorize DHHR to transfer state facilities to regional mental health centers or intellectual disability facilities.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3308, authorizing PSC consider and issue financing orders to certain utilities to permit the recovery of certain costs through securitization via consumer rate relief bonds.
Bill will be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3317, relating to removing specific continuing education requirements.
Bill will be advanced. Are there other bills on first reading? If not, leaves of absence. Gentleman from 96th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For our colleagues Bridges, Hardy, Kelly, C. Pritt, Pritt, and Williams.
Are there objections to leaves of absence being granted? No objections are heard. Those leaves of absence will be granted. Introductions. Gentleman from the 43rd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce the sponsorship of the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians in celebrating the 34th anniversary of the Doctor Today program. Our family doctor today is Howard Lafferty from South Charleston. Please give him a warm welcome.
Gentleman from the 45th, Douglas Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think these ladies may still be up in the North Gallery. I do have the pleasure of introducing a couple of ladies that are down here for the Pro-Life Rally Day. They have done so much in Raleigh County and really around the state to advance the cause of life. It's Hilda Shorter and Lori Legursky. If they're in the gallery, let's make them feel welcome.
Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from 96th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcements, that the House adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Are there announcements? Gentleman from 96th.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules will meet tomorrow morning at 10:45 a.m. behind the chamber.
Gentleman from the 12th, Doug Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Finance will meet today, February 13th at 3 p.m. in the Finance Committee room. The agenda is posted.
Gentleman from 51st, Doug Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to inquire as to the availability of the chamber tomorrow at 9 a.m. Wednesday, February 15 at 9 a.m. for the purposes of a public hearing.
That's Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Chair's advised the space is available.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to announce that the House Judiciary Committee will hold a public hearing for Senate Bill 10, Campus Self-Defense Act, on Wednesday, February 15 at 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the House chamber. Registration to speak during the public hearing will commence at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, February 15th in the House chamber. Further, Mr. Speaker, I would announce that your Committee on Judiciary will meet this afternoon, today, February 13, at 3 p.m. in the House Judiciary Committee room. The Republicans will caucus at 2:45 in the Chairman's office, and the agenda has been posted.
Gentleman the first, Doug McGeehan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today at 1 o'clock. Republicans, caucus, Chairman's office, 12:45.
Lady in the 49th, Doug Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, February 14th at 3 p.m. in the East Wing Committee room. The agenda will be posted. The Republicans will caucus at 2:30 in the Chair's office, and please bring your laptops. Thank you.
Gentleman the 43rd, Doug Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet today at 2 p.m. The agenda is posted. Republican members will caucus in the Chairman's office at 1 o'clock. Additionally, Education will meet tomorrow, February the 14th at 4 p.m., and the agenda will be posted.
Lady from the 4th, Doug Storch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Pensions and Retirement will meet tomorrow morning, Tuesday, February 14th, to tackle our overly ambitious agenda at 10 a.m. in House Finance Committee room.
Gentleman the 85th, Doug Hott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Banking and Insurance will not meet tomorrow.
Gentleman the 2nd, Doug Teslo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Energy and Manufacturing will meet tomorrow, February 14th at 1 p.m. in the Judiciary Meeting Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman the 99th, Doug Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Economic Development and Tourism will meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the House Finance Room. The agenda is posted.
Gentleman the 21st, Doug Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Technology and Infrastructure will meet tomorrow, Tuesday, February 14th at 1 p.m. in the House Education Room. The agenda will be posted.
Gentleman from the 66th, Doug Nestor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources will meet tomorrow, February 14th, 2023 at 9:15 a.m. in the East Wing Committee room, room 215E. Republican members will caucus at 9 o'clock a.m. The agenda will be posted. Please remember to bring your laptops. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 17th, Doug Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your subcommittee on tourism will meet tomorrow, February 14th, at 2 p.m. in the Finance Committee meeting room.
Chairman the 14th, Doug Foggin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had a question about the time on the public hearing. I don't know that I heard it properly.
Chairman the 51st, will please announce the public hearing again.
Thank you. That is Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Sign up to speak 8:30.
Are there other announcements? If not, the question is on the motion that the House stand adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The House is adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.